Tashana Investment Africa Tribe. La 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 la. Just kidding. All right, so let's get back into it. We are talking business creation in Africa, specifically Kenya. Right now, we're going to be talking about products and services. All right. So we've talked about what kind of a business do you want to do? We've talked about setting it up, the business structures and all of that. So now we're going to talk about like your products and your services and what are you really giving to the people. Okay. Keeping in mind, these are kind of like overall videos that we do. And then if there's anything in specific that you really want to know, you'll let me know. We'll do another video about it. And then the ones that I feel like we need a little more specificity, I'll just do another video about it. Okay. So right now we're talking about products and services and how does it look, right? So first, obviously you want to designate where your workspace is going to be, right? Pre-COVID, you needed an office, you needed a warehouse, you needed, all of these places that were taking, expenses out of the business that required funding. COVID said, be creative, right? COVID said, you don't need all of that. And I'm glad for COVID because of that. Why? Because it makes some of your costs go down, all right? So for us, we have our designated workspace, right? So for us, we have a warehouse that has been it's been, when we were getting our business licenses and all of that, we had the city council come and make sure they had to vet the place. Basically, they had to vouch for it. What is this place? So we have a warehouse that we use that does all of our warehousing. If we have really large orders, we distribute directly from that warehouse. And the nice thing is that warehouse has its own requirements, right? So the warehouse are required to have insurance. So that way, let's say if the thing gets robbed, your stuff is also still protected, right? And they've got requirements to make sure that the warehouse has good ventilation, right? Making sure that your products are not sitting directly on the ground, but are actually raised up. They've got requirements for spacing and what's allowed to be in certain areas, right? Like certain products are not allowed to be with other products. For instance, like alcohol. Alcohol has to be warehoused in a separate section than, let's say, if you're importing motorcycles, okay? So that's our main area. And then now, because of COVID, I never bothered to get a business. I never bothered to get an actual office space. Okay, so basically my apartment doubles up not only as my apartment, but it also doubles up as a secondary distribution site, a secondary warehousing site, a manufacturing site. We do almost all of our business meetings. We do them here on the in the apartment complex upstairs in the community room. I think you guys have heard me say before, don't just let everybody come into your house. You don't need all of that. Keep them outside. So for instance, with our place here, it's really nice. The upstairs, it's a very big, open, wide space. And we do our trainings there. We do interviews there. We do business meetings there. We do our marketing and sales meetings there. And the beauty is that all of this is wrapped up into one rental price. As we grow and move, we have had some customers where they want to see an office, they have to see it. It makes them feel like it's more legit, and that's fine as well. And so for us, what we do is we just go to my lawyer's office. She's got a really nice conference room over there. And so generally, like, let's say if we have a distributor who's like, no, I have to meet you there. I just call my lawyer and ask her, can I just use your conference room for like an hour for a meeting? And provided that they're not using it, she's very open to it and she's fine, right? The key to all of this as we're growing and moving is we've got to make sure that our expenses are minimized, because that extra cash has really got to go to marketing and sales, all right? I'm really learning that. You've really got to make sure you've got a good fund for marketing and sales. It's key. It's key. All right. So make sure you've got a workspace for where you know where you want to be. Okay. Then what you want to do is you want to start ordering some of your supplies, right? What are you going to be like? For us, we are a product-based business. We're not a service-based business, which means that we must have product, right? We must have supplies, right? So you got to identify your supplier, make your contract with your supplier. Your supplier is going to create products for you. And then you have different ways how you're going to do that, right? Do you want your own private label product, or do you want to use an existing product and create a new market, right? These are certain things you've got to think about. I always knew when we started this business, because we know that there's so much fraudulent garbage that goes on in the market, I wanted to make sure everything we did was private label, okay? We did a video before about how our previous supplier really just screwed us because they wouldn't give it to us in private label. They only wanted us to sell their product. Stand to what you want, okay? I told them from the beginning I didn't want to use their product. They screwed us. We just changed it into our private label. And once we're done with clearing out their stock, we've already have a new supplier lined up to now make the product look exactly how we want it to look, okay? So once you figure out what you really want and what you want your product to look like, you've got to ask for a sample of your product, okay? Most manufacturers will create it for you. In fact, why am I saying most? All of them, right? It's business. Do you want the business? If you want the business, send me a sample of what it looks like. Some suppliers will give it to you for free. Some suppliers are going to make you pay for it. So it just really depends on what your supplier wants and how they want it. You can also make an agreement with your supplier where just send it to me how it is and we can make it as part of the main stock, right? Because also keeping in mind, if your suppliers are outside of your country, for instance, like ours are, you're going to have to pay for the transport to get them in. Are there other duties that are required, right? So just to give you an example, our booster products, I purchase my full booster products in USD. I pay for tax in the US on that product. We have to ship it to Kenya via transport, which has its own cost. And then I got to pay another duty to enter into the country that Kenya makes me pay, okay? So just kind of keep a little of those little costs in mind because it's going to affect how much your bottom price is going to be that you sell to your end consumer, okay? Now, once you have figured out what your sample product is going to be, you get to figure out, like, does it look how you want it to look? Does it taste how you want it to taste? Does it do what you want it to do? Is it a good quality, right? We have definitely heard of some people where when they're buying from China, for instance, where especially if you go to their trade shows, they're going to show you one product at the trade show, they're going to show you one thing, and then when they send it to you, they send you a totally different product, okay? It's super disingenuous. And what's also really obnoxious is, now imagine if you are here in Africa and your supplier is in China and that guy sends you the wrong things, how do you get to that supplier again, right? So like what happens? Do you say, no, I'm not going to accept your products here at the port? I mean, you can't because you've already paid for it, right? Because a lot of these suppliers are not going to send you any of your products without you paying them. And you definitely can negotiate for credit terms, but generally people are only going to give you credit terms after you have created a relationship with them, right? So why am I saying that to you? Sometimes it feels like a bit of a catch-22, right? Where you're using the supplier's product, so it's like, well, give it to me. And for them, they're like, well, we don't know you. So you could pay for it up front, see if it works for you. If it works, great. If it does, it doesn't, right? Again, these are the risks. These are the opening risks of a business. You want it to be here? Welcome. I'm just letting y'all know what's up. This is what we deal with. It is what it is, okay? Once you now have your products that you want to have for your market, right? Now what you need to do is to create your pricing, okay? So for instance, what we would do is that we would go out into the market and we would just hit up grocery stores, like for instance, with our drinks, right? With our sodas, with nutrition. We would go to grocery stores, we would go to pharmacies, small kiosks. We would go through Instagram. What's new stuff that's coming up? What's popular? What is a product that is similar to our product and what are they charging, right? And then you have to make strategic decisions, right? For us, we were a new product in the market, so we knew that we couldn't just come out onto the market and just put on the price we wanted, right? Sometimes you've got to reduce the price that you want so that you can get market entry into the market so that people can like it. Once people like it, you're going to start to know, and then you can start adjusting your prices. Adjusting your prices. What your end price to your consumer is going to be different than the price that you're going to give to a wholesaler and to a distributor. Okay, the margins that distributors require are different than what wholesales require. You've got to know those numbers, right? So for instance, generally depending, okay, like for instance with us in pharma, a lot of our distributors are looking for 30%. Okay, drinks, they look for 15%. Okay, so you've got to know which product is going into which sector, into which segment, because that's going to dictate your prices. Okay, your wholesaler is going to ask for a different set of requirements. Okay, so for instance, in the grocery side, they're looking at 20 to 25%. Pharma, same, 30. Okay. So you really want to do and take the time to do the marketing, okay? What are people spending out there? What are the prices? And then also keep in mind, once you even give them that, sometimes those wholesalers will put on their own, okay? So for instance, we have a store right now that we sell at. We've already given him his margins on the wholesale side, but on his business side, they require 60%. So for instance, he'll take 30 from us and then he'll take another 30 from the consumer. So for instance, he is one of our higher priced sellers in the market because on his business side, he requires 60% returns. Okay. So again, why am I saying this to you? When we are on the ground right now creating our structures, there's going to be a lot of time consuming, but very necessary work to figure out where do you place yourself so that you are competitive. You don't want to price your product so low that fine, they're going, but now if you raise it, your consumer leaves. You get what I mean? So you've got to be very aware of doing all of that. Once you find your little sweet spot, just get to it. Just get to it, start working, start moving, and then that market is going to tell you. They're going to start telling you what they're willing to do, okay? So for instance, with our new line of products that we just put out, our booster products, right? Our Black Steel, Refine Me, Miss Steady. A lot of those products that are similar to our products are selling about almost like $20 more than what we sell at, right? Depending on where you're going, okay? Now, we have priced our products at the present price right now. Why? It's a market penetration strategy. We want to come in knowing that we've got great quality. All of our products are coming from the US, FDA approved, GMP certified. We know where we intend to raise our prices to. However, we need to make sure people are on board first and really like it, right? Right now, a lot of the sales we've been getting is pure word of mouth because people are loving the quality of the product and our price point makes sense, okay? So all of that to say, make sure you know what your pricing lists are gonna be. Then in another video I had explained to you guys before, you're gonna have different types of pricing lists, right? You're gonna have a list for your distributors, your wholesalers. What do you sell directly to the consumers? What do you sell directly to a business? You get what I mean? Those numbers are gonna be different. What do you sell your product to another online vendor who also has an online platform? It's going to be different because everybody's going to require separate sets of margins. Now, if you have a good accounting system set up, you're good. Send it out. You're going to know exactly where you're going to put them. You know exactly what those percentages are going to be. Okay. So you have your pricing list. And then you're going to do an inventory list. All right. And an inventory list, you've got two types, right? You've got your inventory list of all the products that you still have that are available for sale that you're going to be giving back to your finance so that they can understand what's being depleted, what's going to be the cost of going in and out, right? You also have to understand, just because you've got your cost of your supplies in, you've got to add in their warehousing, distribution, tax, labor, and getting it all out there. So let's say, just for an argument's sake, you're buying a product for 50 cents. Your landing costs, which are purchasing, tax, transport, duty, clearance on the ground, it might triple, right? It might be from 50 cents that you bought it, but once you get it into the country, that thing might be $1.50, okay? So now if your landed costs are $1.50, you've got to now understand you still got to make some money to get to your end consumer. You understand what I'm saying? So now you'll have your landed cost, but now you'll have your distributors requiring a percentage, your wholesalers requiring a percentage, and then you get to your end consumer. So that $1.50 product landed might sell to your consumer at like $3. You get what I mean? And so that's why it's very important to really get that pricing right. It is very important to understand what your market is willing to spend, because your market's also going to be willing to spend different monies on different things, right? Like, I think right now I was like looking on the Shade Room and they were like clowning Sheree from Real Housewives of Atlanta, if you know, you know, about her She by Sheree and how she's selling a pair of leggings on her website for like $130, but you could buy those same leggings from a Chinese supplier for $5. The market's going to pay what the market's going to pay, right? You're paying for her name, you're paying for her image, you're paying for having that. You got to pay to play. You going to pay $130, or you can get onto Amazon and buy it direct from the Chinese supplier for $5. It's what your market is willing to pay for and what your consumers are willing to pay for. These are things that are beyond your control. However, these are things you need to know, okay? Also, with that inventory list, sometimes you're going to have your distributors are going to ask you, do you have enough product on deck, right? So let's say, for instance, you've got a massive distributor who deals with all high-end grocery stores, right? So for instance, here at Carrefour, there's a number of outlets. Are you going to be in one Carrefour, or are you going to be in 5 Carrefours? That's going to make a huge difference with your inventory list, your expenses, because also keeping in mind, most of these guys keep your product on consignment, which means that you don't get paid till they sell. And you don't get paid till they sell and they run you your money, okay? Now, theoretically, you know, it should be 30 to 60 days. Practically, we're talking 180 days. So again, why am I throwing out all these numbers for you? These are real things you've got to think about. I don't want y'all to get scared about it and be like, oh my God, Rita, you making me not. Now, if me saying all of this scares you so much that you're not trying to do it, then you wasn't serious from the beginning, okay? You wasn't serious, all right? We're talking serious right now. Nobody said this was easy. All you people out here are like, oh, I should have just opened a business. It was easy. This ain't easy, fam. This ain't easy because you've got to deal with a lot of things that are beyond your control. You've got to deal with market psychology, consumer psychology. What do people like? What are people willing to spend? And it makes a difference on your bottom line. You know what I mean? So this video, we're talking about what are your products or your services and how do you have it? Designate your workspace. Find your supplier. Order your supplies. Order a sample prior to your supplies. Once you have your products here, via your accounting, learn what your landed costs are. Once you understand your landed costs, understand what are similar products in the market selling for. Make your price sheets. Make your inventory list. Now, you got something that you can give to the market. Make sense? You got something. All right. Comments, thoughts, questions, concerns. In the comments, hit me up. Let me answer it for you. Otherwise, like and subscribe. TIA Marketplace. You already know. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.